All right, so the fifth part of Elio Gracie's lesson 1 is what to do if you've been thrown on the ground and a person is sitting across your chest, straddling you and trying to choke you with both hands. Right? So, what happens here is I'm on the ground on my back. This is probably the quintessential Brazilian Jiu-jitsu movement. Everyone knows that it's called the upa, mount escape. Upa because I go upa, right? I lift my hips, upa, not downa, upa. All right, so Nate is sitting on my chest, straddling me. This is a very dangerous position because he can reach my neck and I can't reach his. He can punch my face and I can't punch his. He can take my neck and he can bash my head off the ground repeatedly. When he punches me in the face, this hits my face and then my head hits the pavement. Right? These are all very dangerous scenarios. On top of that, his weight, if he's bigger and stronger, is sufficient to keep me pinned. So I can thrash about and all he has to do is put his hands down and it makes it impossible for him for me to get him off me. And I become exhausted very quickly. Then he can do anything he wants. So let's imagine a person has set up. This is the most common thing you'll see, right? People are either going to punch each other from here, or, the person on top is going to punch the person, or they're going to grab them. And so when they grab the neck, just like anywhere in Jiu-Jitsu, the first thing we need is a base. Where is your base here? It's both feet, right, and your hands, right? Your elbows touch the ground also. So it's nice if you keep your hands here sometimes because you may be deflecting punches, although that doesn't last for long, right? The person could find a way to get around that. But as soon as they grab the neck, right? Or maybe as soon as you're mounted and they're not punching, put your elbows on the ground because you're going to have a much worse time if they lift your elbows up and they slide their knees up higher. Now, look, the whole operational methodology which makes the mount escape work, the hips, they're no longer there, you see? I lift the hips, but because he's on the chest, I can't control him. So before this happens, when he's on the hips, when he first mounts, that's when I put my elbows in the ground and I keep him from climbing high. Right? And then he may be really angry, so he grabs me around the throat and he tries to choke me. As soon as this happens, you see, because the hands are low, don't go over both arms and get yourself stuck. Whatever hand you grab with, you go under the same side arm, and then you just find the arm on the other side. So one is a cross grip. You cross grip. And then just to make sure he doesn't pull that away, you hold the tricep. Now if he's got a long jacket on, or a gi in this case, you can grab the cloth if you like. But I recommend you learn this by grabbing the tricep, because that will always be there unless the person doesn't have an arm. If they don't have an arm, they can only choke you with one hand, and that's a lot easier. Right? You just maybe brush it off. But here there's two hands. So I'm under and cross-gripping the wrist, not the hand, because the hand is soft and he can roll it out. And not so high on the arm that he can just lift the hand and still get it to my throat. Right? I'm grabbing the wrist, right where the hand and the wrist meet. Right at no thumb. This hand, I hold the tricep just above the elbow, between the shoulder and the elbow. Now, if I try to roll him here, he can just step up on the foot, you see? So I'm going to trap the foot too. Sometimes this elbow here, which is already in place because you were using it to keep his knees from crawling into the armpits, sometimes this elbow can be used a little bit to feed the foot to your foot. Before you go, if your knee's pointed in like this, it's going to be very hard to roll. It's very unnatural for the body. So it helps if you open your knee. And you see the foot still remains trapped even though the knee is open, because it's my foot on his foot doing the trapping. It's not the whole leg. So open your knee a bit. Now when you lift your hips, the biggest mistake people make is they try to lift and roll at the same time and they get stuck. And they try this 3 or 4 times and they become exhausted and the person goes to town on them. Right? So you trap the hand, the tricep, the foot. Look, you can walk your foot in like this, you see. Right? You walk your foot, heel and toe, until it's trapped, and you open the knee. Now lift the hips 12 o'clock first. You must take all of the weight that is centered on your hips and move it over your head. Otherwise, this area is too light. If I try to turn right now with all the weight on my hips, look what happens. I get stuck. I have to take all of the weight that's here and move it here. Once the weight transfers, look how light this area is. Even underneath him, I can turn. You see my hips are free to move. So now when I maintain all of these traps, it's very easy when I roll over my shoulder directly to my knees. Do not roll over your stomach. Do not drop the hips. Now he just pushes himself back and sits on me. What's that? Right? Cross grip, tricep. Walk the foot in, open the knee. The hips must go exclusively 12 o'clock. Once they do it, I know the weight transfers because he does that. Because if he doesn't do that, that's his face. And look what happens. He lets go of the choke. There's two benefits here, right? So now I roll directly over my shoulder to my knees, And I don't want to get hit in the face, so I trap the bicep and the bicep because he may try to punch me here, right? And the best thing you can do is widen the knees here, widen your own knees. If you're tight, you may get rolled over. Widen the knees and put your head in the stomach and hide right here. Just put your head in the stomach and hide. Okay? Helio also shows that when you're in this position and you've secured things, if you like, you can sit up and throw a headbutt. Right? Two ways to headbutt. One is you just drive straight forward like a missile, boom, under the chin, using the top of your head to drive up into him like this. The other is to crawl a little closer, turn your head to one side or the other. This area here is called the crown ridge. If you headbutt with your forehead, you're going to break your nose. And it bleeds easily here, and then blood's in your eyes, and that's a problem. You have the time to think of these little details because you're trained. This is why we train. We have these little extra sophisticated ways of thinking about the movements that allow us to make decisions like this. And we can say, I am going to headbutt this person for mounting me and trying to choke me, because that's going to help diffuse the situation entirely and make them think twice about attacking me again. But I'm not going to do it in such a way that I bleed excessively or I break my nose. So I'm either going to drive the top of my head directly up under their chin, boom, it's like throwing an uppercut with your head, or I'm going to turn my head to one side and sit up a little bit over them and slam the head down on their face using the crown ridge, right? Those are the two technical applications for the headbutt. That should soften them up enough, right? And then we'll see, how we need to move forward from there. Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, Helio Gracie's Jiu-Jitsu, is a complete fighting system. So if there's more that's required after we escape the mount, then we have all kinds of things to do, right? We can climb to our own mount, we can choke them unconscious, we can break the arm, we can hold them until help arrives, right? There's a lot of things that we do. We have a lot of options. Right now, the primary thing is get out. Get out. This is the worst possible place you can be. Stuck underneath a heavier, stronger opponent, glued to the ground, and as he sits on my chest, I give him the chance to climb his knees high and then attack my neck or punch my face mercilessly. This is it's just over very quickly for me here, right? So as soon as you see yourself moving towards being on your back, don't let the knees climb. The hands can be here for rudimentary approaches to punch deflection or to deflect the hands trying to grab. But sometimes you may just grab the neck anyway, right? So since the hands are already low, cross over and hold the wrist. Then support that hold by grabbing the tricep above the elbow. Then open the foot and walk it in until you trap his own foot, and then you open the knee, right? Don't leave your knee bent or you won't be able to turn. Sometimes you may need to even grab your own foot here and bring it closer to you. There, now I get a better trap on the foot. And then you open the knee a little bit. The hips have to go 12 o'clock. Exclusively 12 o'clock, till I feel all the weight come off my hips. Then I can roll directly to my knees over my shoulder and trap the biceps so I don't get punched. And I spread my knees and walk close and hide my head. Hide my head. If I want to, I can sit up and jam the head up under the chin for the headbutt, or I can walk the knees even closer and using the crown ridge, throw a headbutt to the face and right back. Don't stay there and look at him, right? With glee, like, Do this and hide yourself again. He's not going to lay there and let you do nothing, right? He's going to respond very actively. So you open, you strike, and you close again, right? But most importantly, when Nate is on his back and he's pinned to the ground by a heavier, stronger opponent, he uses his elbows to keep the knees from climbing high. if I can reach his neck, he goes under and then cross grips the wrist, holds the tricep, walks the foot into my foot, and then he makes sure to open the knee. Then when he lifts his hips, it's exclusively 12 o'clock. And now with all the weight off, he can roll over and immediately trap the biceps. Right? And then if I'm still aggressive and he wants to calm me down, he can jam the top of the head under the chin. Or he can sit up, turn the crown ridge, boom! That's the best one. All right? And that's the Upa mount escape. All right. Nate is mounted on me, and another thing he can do, besides choke me, is he can hold my head. Right? He can hold my head. When he holds my head, he can punch me in the face. This is awful. Right? We address this in the core curriculum, but we're just going to look at HELIO'S approach. It's much simpler. Right? It's not as involved when we get into the finer details in the core curriculum. Suffice it to say that if Nate grabs my head, right, I can use the same side hand that I would have used to grab the wrist before. Right? I can now grab it on the same side and just confirm that grip. Lock his arm against my head. Then everything's the same. I trap the foot, and I walk the foot in. I open the knee a little bit. This hand here, it goes on his hip. Look how I wedge it under his hip, right? I make this grip, like a slight letter C, and I wedge it under his hip. And you notice my elbow is still in front of his knee, right, keeping him from climbing high. If he climbs high on this side, it doesn't matter, because that's where we're going to fall. So that's all right, right? I'd still like to keep it low, so I can jam it and lock my foot there and open the knee. But I can firm the grip around the head, lock my elbow down. You see also when I do this, it relieves a little pressure. If he squeezes my head hard, I can sometimes open that space a little bit with my shoulder, with my hand on his shoulder. So it helps me a little bit, and I can get my chin free, right? The foot is the same as it was in the first part, and this hand wedges under the hip. Now I plant both feet, and I lift the hips, and now I use the turn over my shoulder, and the hand just guides him over. You see right here in the hip. And then we land in the same position. Block the biceps, hide the head. I can headbutt or stand up and headbutt and return to a safe position. All right? So here we are. I'm mounted. I've been mounted by Nate. And he holds the head. Right? This is not good because now he can punch me in the face. You see? So I don't want this. So I have to move quickly. As soon as he holds the head, maybe I stick something between me and him so that as he tries to punch, it's like a little safe. I lift my head up and I just put my arm there. But this won't last long, right? It's a pretty perishable defense. He can just sort of swim around it and boom, right there's the punch. Right, so I've got to be sticky as possible. But in the meantime, if he grabs the head, right, and I just do something here, I'm going to confirm the grip, trap the foot, wedge the hand right here on the hip. Lift the hips 12 o'clock and then use the hand to go over my shoulder, to my knees, block the biceps, hide the head, and the headbutting is the same as it is in the first part. All right? All right, let's try.